The wind howled like a vengeful spirit across the Seoul skyline, tearing through the night with icy fingers that could strip the warmth from your bones in seconds. Weather reports called it the worst blizzard to hit South Korea in 50 years, with temperatures plummeting to -20 degrees. The kind of cold that doesn't just bite, it devours. But inside the sprawling mansion of Song Min-ho, patriarch of the infamous Song family syndicate, the air was thick with heat, laughter, and the pungent aroma of power. The Lunar New Year celebration was in full swing, crystal glasses clinking as Korea's business elite, and those who operated in the shadows behind them paid homage to the man who controlled half of Seoul's underground economy. Min-ho sat at the head of the banquet table, his weathered face revealing nothing, obsidian eyes observing his guests with the detachment of a predator assessing prey. At 62, his hair had gone silver, but his reputation remained blood-red. They called him the Granite Hand, not because he was brutal, though he could be, but because once he decided to hold something, neither God nor government could pry it loose. 22 servants moved through the mansion like ghosts, efficient, silent, invisible. Among them was Zara Williams, 27 years old, a Black American woman whose academic brilliance had once earned her a scholarship to Seoul National University. Her dream of becoming a translator had crumbled when her grandmother's medical bills arrived, the numbers so staggering they seemed to mock her from the paper. Cancer treatment in America wasn't kind to those without insurance. 1 year ago, desperate and with nowhere else to turn, she'd accepted the position in the Song household. Zara moved between the guests, refilling soju glasses, keeping her eyes lowered, her face neutral. She had learned quickly that in this house, to be noticed was dangerous, especially by Soo-min, Min-ho's daughter-in-law, a woman sculpted from privilege and cruelty. You, Soo-min's voice cut through the din of conversation, sharp as a blade against silk. The American. Zara froze, crystal decanter poised mid-pour. The businessman beside her tensed, sensing the shift in atmosphere like an animal detecting an approaching storm. Zara turned slowly toward the voice, bowing her head in deference. Yes, Madam Soo-min? Soo-min stood by the massive bay windows, draped in a crimson hanbok that cost more than Zara would earn in 3 years. Her face was a porcelain mask of contempt, red lips curved in what only the generous would call a smile. My jade pin is missing, Soo-min announced, voice rising just enough to draw attention from nearby guests. The ancestral pin that has been in the Song family for 5 generations. The one I was wearing earlier. Zara's stomach dropped. She knew the pin, a priceless jade dragon, small enough to fit in a palm but worth enough to buy a house. She also knew she hadn't touched it. I can help search for it inside, madam, Zara offered, her Korean perfectly accented after years of study. Soo-min's laugh was like glass breaking. No need to search inside. I was admiring the garden earlier, before the storm worsened. It must have fallen in the snow. Behind Soo-min, through the window, there was nothing but white fury, snow swirling in violent eddies. The ornamental cherry trees bent nearly double under the assault of the wind. The temperature display on the smart home panel read -17 degrees Celsius. Madam, perhaps we should wait until morning, Zara suggested, her voice careful, measured. The groundskeeper could. Are you refusing a direct order? Soo-min's voice dropped to a whisper, but the room seemed to still around them. That pin is worth more than your miserable life. More than your grandmother's life too, I imagine. The threat wasn't subtle. In her first month, Zara had witnessed a driver beaten unconscious for being 5 minutes late. She had cleaned the blood from the marble floor herself. Mrs. Park, the housekeeper who had sold her humanity to the Songs years ago, materialized at Soo-min's side. I'll find her a coat, she murmured, but Soo-min raised a manicured hand. No need. She won't be out long if she searches properly. Besides, her eyes slid over Zara's uniform with disdain. Foreigners are accustomed to hardship, aren't they? The statement hung in the air, its racism naked and unashamed. Several guests looked away uncomfortably. None spoke up. Mrs. Park unlocked the heavy glass door leading to the terrace. The moment it opened, the storm invaded, a blast of Arctic air that sucked the warmth from the room in an instant. Snow swirled across imported marble tiles. Go, Sumin commanded. And don't come back without it. Zara stepped through the doorway in her thin black uniform dress, cotton stockings and simple flats. The cold hit her like a physical blow, driving the air from her lungs. Before she could turn back, the door slammed behind her. Click, the lock engaged. Through the glass, she saw Sumin smile, turn away, and gesture for a waiter to bring another drink. Mrs. Park drew the heavy curtains closed, erasing Zara from sight. The snow was already knee-deep on the terrace, the wind whipping it into drifts against the stone balustrade. Zara wrapped her arms around herself, her body already beginning to tremble violently. Focus, she whispered to herself, her words torn away by the wind. Just find it, and they'll let you back in. She dropped to her knees, plunging her bare hands into the snow. The pain was immediate and shocking, like plunging into boiling water instead of ice. Her fingers, then her hands, then her wrists went numb within seconds. She crawled forward, sweeping her arms through the mounting drifts, searching for something she knew wasn't there. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Her movements grew sluggish, her thoughts cloudy. The cold wasn't just on her skin anymore. It had seeped into her blood, her bones, her soul. Her grandmother's face floated before her eyes, warm brown skin, silver hair, the smile that had raised her after her parents died. The thought that she might never see that smile again drove her back to the door. She pounded weakly on the glass, but her hands were too numb to feel the impact. She screamed, but the howling wind swallowed the sound. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the party continuing, crystal glasses raised in toast, laughter, warmth. No one was coming. No one was looking. Sumin didn't want the pin. Sumin wanted her gone. The realization settled over Zara with the same finality as the snow accumulating on her shoulders. This wasn't punishment. It was execution. She slumped against the stone railing, the fight draining from her body as quickly as the warmth. The strange, seductive drowsiness of late-stage hypothermia began to cloud her mind. It would be so easy to just close her eyes, to drift away on this white bed that no longer felt cold. If you've ever felt abandoned in your darkest hour, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment your thoughts below. Keep watching to see what happens when true honor meets cruel injustice in the freezing Korean winter. Inside the mansion, oblivious to the life slipping away just outside its walls, the celebration reached its crescendo. Minho had just completed the traditional ancestral ceremony, bowing before the family shrine that traced the Song lineage back through centuries of warriors, merchants, and finally, modern-day gangsters, though they preferred the term businessmen. Where is the new girl? Minho asked suddenly, his deep voice cutting through the conversations around him. The American. I don't see her. His son, Junho, shrugged dismissively, probably slacking off in the kitchen. These foreigners don't understand our work ethic. Minho's eyes narrowed. He'd watched the American girl since she arrived, not with lust or even particular interest, but with the same careful attention he gave to everything in his domain. She moved differently than the others. There was pride in her posture, intelligence in her eyes. She didn't belong here, and they both knew it. Find her, he ordered one of his security men. Bring her to me. The man bowed and disappeared. Minho excused himself from the table and retreated to his private office on the second floor, the one place in the mansion where he could breathe without performance. He loosened his tie, poured himself a glass of 30-year-old scotch, and walked to the window overlooking the rear gardens. The security guard's voice crackled through the intercom 5 minutes later. Sir, we cannot locate the American maid. Mrs. Park says Madame Sumin sent her outside to search for something. Outside? Minho's voice was dangerously soft. In this storm? Yes, sir. About 20 minutes ago. Minho's eyes snapped to the window, squinting through the swirling white. The floodlights mounted on the mansion roof cut through the darkness, illuminating the terrace in harsh relief. At first, he saw nothing but pristine drifts of snow, sculptured by the wind into alien formations. Then he saw it, a dark lump against the far railing, partially buried already. It could have been a garbage bag blown by the wind, or perhaps a cushion from the summer furniture. Except this lump moved the barest, weakest shift of an arm falling limply into the snow. Minho's heart, hardened by decades in a business where compassion was a liability, seemed to stop. The crystal tumbler slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. He didn't hear it. "Call Dr. Kim," he barked into the intercom. "Now. And have my room prepared, extra blankets, heating pads, everything." He didn't wait for acknowledgement. He was already moving, his aged body driven by an urgency he hadn't felt in years. He bypassed the grand staircase and took the service stairs 2 at a time, startling kitchen staff as he burst through. The banquet hall fell silent as he strode through, guests parting before his thunderous expression. Sumin's laughter cut off mid-sound when she saw her father-in-law's face. "Where is she?" Minho demanded, his voice a controlled explosion. Sumin's smile faltered. "Who, father?" "The American, Zara." "Oh." Sumin waved dismissively. "I sent her to find my jade pin. She's probably hiding somewhere to avoid work." Minho's eyes moved to the curtained terrace doors. Without a word, he crossed the room in long strides and ripped the heavy drapes aside. Through the frosted glass, the terrace was barely visible now, the snow having built up against the door like a white wall. He grabbed the handle. Locked. The entire room watched, breaths held. As Minho Song, respected, feared patriarch of Korea's most powerful criminal family, took 3 steps back, raised his foot, and smashed it against the lock with all the force of his considerable frame. The wood splintered. The metal shrieked. The double doors flew open, banging against the interior walls with enough violence to make the crystal chandelier shudder. Wind and snow exploded into the room, extinguishing candles and sending napkins fluttering like startled birds. Minho didn't hesitate. He plunged into the storm, the bitter cold slicing through his expensive suit as if it were paper. He trudged through knee-deep snow, following the dark shape that was nearly invisible now beneath the fresh powder. When he reached her, his heart constricted. Zara lay curled in a fetal position, her black uniform dusted with white, her dark skin ashen with cold. Her eyes were closed, lips blue, lashes crusted with ice crystals. "Zara," he growled, dropping to his knees beside her. "Zara, open your eyes." She didn't respond. Minho pressed trembling fingers against her throat, searching for a pulse. It was there, weak, thready but present. A fighter's pulse. Without ceremony, he scooped her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like holding a child. Her head rolled against his shoulder, ice-cold cheek pressing against his neck. Her body was rigid, muscles locked by cold and fear. "I've got you," he whispered fiercely. Words he hadn't spoken to another human being in decades. "Hold on." He turned back toward the house, cradling her against his chest to shield her from the wind. Through the shattered doorway, he could see his guests staring in shock. Sumin stood frozen, her face a mask of disbelief. His son looked embarrassed, already calculating the social damage. Not one of them had moved to help. Minho carried Zara through the doorway, his face carved from granite, eyes burning with a rage so pure it seemed to elevate the temperature of the room. Snow melted on the marble floors around his feet. Water dripped from his silver hair, from the hem of his ruined suit, from Zara's limp hand dangling over his arm. "Move," he commanded, and the crowd parted like water before a blade. As he passed Sumin, he paused. In 20 years of marriage to his son, he had never once raised his voice to her. She was the mother of his grandchildren. She was family. "If she dies," he said, his voice soft enough that only she could hear, "there won't be enough money in all of Korea to buy you a grave deep enough to hide in." He continued past her, leaving Sumin white-faced and trembling. He carried Zara up the grand staircase, past curious staff and security personnel, to the wing of the mansion reserved exclusively for family, to his own quarters. His personal physician was already waiting, an elderly man who had treated 3 generations of Songs and knew better than to ask questions about gunshot wounds or suspicious bruises. Dr. Kim's eyes widened when he saw who Minho was carrying. "Hypothermia," Minho said, laying Zara gently on his bed. "Severe." She was outside for at least 30 minutes. Dr. Kim moved efficiently, checking vitals, barking orders to the hovering staff. We need to warm her slowly. Get these wet clothes off. Heating blankets on low. Warm saline 4. Minho didn't leave. He stood like a statue at the foot of the bed, watching as maids cut away Zara's frozen uniform. When her arms were exposed, he saw the bruises, yellowish-green on her upper arms, the distinct shape of fingerprints. Old bruises, not from today. Who did this to her? He asked, his voice deadly quiet. The maids exchanged nervous glances. No one spoke. I asked a question, Minho said, each word precisely measured. This girl has been abused. In my house. Under my roof. Mrs. Park, who had followed upstairs, cleared her throat. Sir, the American girl is clumsy. She breaks things. Madame Sumin has been instructing her in proper. Get out, Minho interrupted. All of you except Dr. Kim. Out. The room cleared instantly. Only the doctor remained, inserting N4 into Zara's arm with practiced precision. Will she live? Minho asked. Dr. Kim nodded. If we caught it in time. Her youth is in her favor. But Minho, he glanced up, his old eyes troubled. This girl wasn't just sent outside. Look at her wrists. Minho leaned closer. Around Zara's wrists were thin red lines, the kind made by plastic zip ties. Someone bound her hands before sending her out there, Dr. Kim said quietly. This wasn't punishment. This was attempted murder. The storm outside is nothing compared to what's brewing inside the Song Mansion. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens when cultures clash and unexpected alliances form. Morning came to Seoul, the storm finally exhausted after its night of rage. Sunlight sparkled on the snow-covered city, transforming the destruction into a deceptive wonderland of white. Inside Minho's private quarters, Zara opened her eyes slowly, confusion clouding her face. She was in a bed larger than her entire room in the servants' quarters, covered in blankets that felt like clouds against her skin. Her body ached everywhere, especially her hands and feet, but she was warm, wonderfully, impossibly warm. You're awake, a deep voice observed. Zara's head turned so quickly that pain shot down her neck. Song Minho sat in an armchair beside the bed, still wearing yesterday's shirt, though he'd removed the tie. He looked as if he hadn't slept. Memories flooded back, the cold, the snow, the locked door. Fear shot through her and she tried to sit up, only to fall back with a groan as her muscles protested. Don't move, Minho ordered, his tone softening slightly. Dr. Kim says you need rest. Sir, Zara croaked, her throat raw. I'm sorry. The pin. I couldn't. There was no pin, Minho interrupted. We both know that. Silence stretched between them. Zara stared at the ceiling, tears welling in her eyes. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made the betrayal no less painful. Why does my daughter-in-law want you dead, Miss Williams? Minho asked directly. Zara closed her eyes. I don't know, sir. Don't lie to me, Minho said, not unkindly. Not after I carried you through a blizzard. Zara's eyes opened, meeting his for the first time. In the year she'd worked in his house, she'd never dared to look directly at Song Minho. Now, she saw not just the fearsome crime lord, but an old man with tired eyes and deeply etched worry lines. 3 weeks ago, Zara began hesitantly. I was serving tea during Madame Sumin's mahjong game. Her friend, Mrs. Choi, mentioned that her husband was investing heavily in a development project in Busan. Madame Sumin said the investment was safe because you had taken care of the environmental inspection. Minho's face remained impassive. And I speak Korean, sir. Not just polite phrases for service, but fluently. Madame Sumin assumed I couldn't understand. When she realized I had, she's been watching me ever since. Minho nodded slowly. That explains the surveillance, but not the murder attempt. Zara hesitated again. 2 days ago, I was cleaning Madame Sumin's private sitting room. I found documents in her desk, bank transfers to an account in Shanghai. Large amounts. I think she's been moving money out of the family accounts. Minho's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. You're very observant for a maid, Miss Williams. I wasn't always a maid, Zara replied, a flicker of pride breaking through her exhaustion. I came to Korea on a full scholarship to study international business and translation. I was top of my class until what? Until my grandmother got sick. Cancer. The bills. She trailed off, the familiar despair washing over her. In America, getting sick can ruin you if you're not rich. I needed money fast. This job paid well. No questions asked. Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the snow-covered grounds. In my house, he said finally. Even the lowest servant deserves dignity. What happened to you last night was unforgivable. Sir, Zara whispered. I can leave today. Just please. The money for my grandmother. You're not going anywhere. Minho cut her off, turning back to face her. You're staying right here until you're fully recovered. After that, we will discuss your future. His tone made it clear the conversation was over. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing, Miss Williams. These documents you saw, what exactly did they show? Zara swallowed hard. Names, dates, account numbers. 15 million US dollars transferred in the last month alone. Minho nodded once, his face unreadable. Rest now. There's a button by your hand if you need anything. My personal staff will attend to you. As he closed the door behind him, Zara sank back into the pillows, trembling not from cold now, but from the realization that she had just become a pawn in a very dangerous game. Outside in the hallway, Minho gestured to his most trusted bodyguard. No one enters this room except Dr. Kim and myself. No one. Especially not my son or his wife. Yes, sir. The man bowed. Sir, about last night. The guests have all been generously compensated for the disruption, Minho finished, and reminded of the consequences of loose tongues. He walked away, his mind already calculating, assessing, planning. $15 million. His daughter-in-law was either stealing from the family or, worse, preparing to betray them to rivals. Either way, blood ties would not protect her from what was coming. For 3 days, Zara remained in Minho's quarters, attended by silent, efficient staff who treated her with a deference that made her uncomfortable. Her uniform had been replaced with silk pajamas and a warm robe. Food appeared regularly, not staff meals, but the same premium dishes prepared for the family. On the 4th morning, she was strong enough to stand without dizziness. She found clothes laid out for her, not a maid's uniform, but simple, expensive loungewear. A clear message. Her status had changed. When she emerged from the bathroom, Minho was waiting, seated in the same chair as before. Sir? She bowed slightly, the ingrained habit of deference hard to break. Thank you for saving my life. Minho nodded once. Sit down, Miss Williams. We need to talk. Zara perched on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. I've confirmed your story, Minho said without preamble. The money transfers, the timing, all of it. What you discovered was not just theft. It was betrayal. He stood up and paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back. My son and his wife have been feeding information to the Park Syndicate, our chief rivals, while siphoning money offshore. They were planning to defect, taking my grandchildren with them. Zara's eyes widened. Sir, I didn't mean to cause. You caused nothing, Minho interrupted. You merely unveiled what was already festering. For that, I am in your debt. He stopped pacing and fixed her with an intense gaze. But now we have a problem, you and I. You know too much about my family's business. Things that could send me to prison for the rest of my life if they reached the right ears. Zara's breath caught. This was it. She had escaped freezing to death only to face execution by other means. I know things that could destroy your family, she acknowledged quietly. But sir, I would never. I believe you, Minho said, surprising her. Which is why I'm offering you a choice. He sat down across from her, leaning forward. Option 1. I arrange for you and your grandmother to relocate anywhere in the world. New identities, comfortable living allowance, complete severance from this life. You forget everything you've seen and heard in this house. Zara blinked. And option 2? You stay, Minho said simply. Not as a maid, but as my personal assistant. Your education, your language skills, your discretion, these are valuable to me. More valuable than your ability to serve tea. Why would you trust me? Zara asked, genuinely confused. I'm nobody to you. Minho's weathered face softened almost imperceptibly. You remind me of someone I lost long ago. Someone who also spoke truth regardless of consequence. He stood up abruptly, mask firmly back in place. You have until tomorrow to decide. For now, rest. You're still recovering. After he left, Zara moved to the window, staring out at the frozen garden below. The terrace where she had nearly died was visible from here. Fresh snow had erased all evidence of that night's events, as if it had never happened. But it had happened. And now, impossibly, she had become valuable to one of the most dangerous men in Korea. That afternoon, as Zara was dozing, the door to her room opened. She jolted awake, expecting Minho or the doctor. Instead, Sumin stood in the doorway, elegant as always in a designer dress, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. The bodyguard appeared immediately behind her. Madam, you cannot. It's all right, Zara said, sitting up straighter. Let her in. The guard hesitated, then nodded curtly, remaining visible in the hallway as Sumin entered, closing the door behind her. For a long moment, the two women stared at each other, predator and prey, though the roles had suddenly, dramatically reversed. Comfortable? Sumin finally asked, her voice dripping with venom. Enjoying my father-in-law's hospitality? What do you want, Madam Sumin? Zara asked quietly. I want to know what lies you've been telling. Sumin hissed, stepping closer. What spell you've cast over an old man to make him betray his own blood for a foreigner? I've told no lies, Zara replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. You tried to kill me. You've been abusing me for months. And now you're angry because your plan failed. Sumin's perfectly composed face contorted. You think you've won? You're nothing. A charity case. A black girl playing dress-up in clothes you could never afford. The racism hit Zara like a slap, but she refused to flinch. Is that why you tried to kill me? Because of the color of my skin. I tried to kill you because you know too much, Sumin snapped, then immediately realized her mistake. Zara's eyes narrowed. So you admit it. Sumin's hand shot out, grabbing Zara's wrist with bruising force. Listen to me carefully. My husband is the heir to everything you see. This little game you're playing with Minho won't last. The old man is sentimental, but my husband isn't. When Minho dies, and at his age, that could be any day, we will own you. She leaned closer, her expensive perfume suffocating in its intensity. And your poor, sick grandmother in America? It would be a shame if her condition suddenly worsened. Ice flooded Zara's veins. You wouldn't. Try me, Sumin smiled, releasing Zara's wrist. One phone call is all it takes. She straightened, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her dress. You have until tomorrow to pack your things and disappear. Tell Minho whatever story you like. But if you're still in this house by sunset tomorrow, your grandmother won't see another sunrise. She turned and glided to the door, composed once more. Oh, and Zara? That jade pin I sent you to find? It was in my jewelry box the entire time. I just needed an excuse. After she left, Zara sat frozen on the bed, heart hammering in her chest. The threat was clear, and Sumin's resources were vast. If Zara stayed, her grandmother would pay the price. That night, Minho found her sitting by the window, staring out at the city lights. Her face was tear-stained but resolute. You've made your decision, he observed, not a question. Zara nodded. I have to leave. I can't stay here. Minho studied her, his dark eyes missing nothing. Something changed. Someone spoke to you. Zara looked down at her hands. It doesn't matter. This was never my world, Mr. Song. I don't belong here. Because you're black? Because you're American? Minho asked bluntly. Or because my daughter-in-law threatened your grandmother? Zara's head snapped up, eyes wide. How did you? My security cameras record audio as well as video, Minho said simply. I know exactly what was said in this room earlier today. He sat down across from her, his movements deliberate and controlled. In Korea, we have a saying, a true leader protects all under their roof. You are under my roof, Miss Williams. You and your grandmother both, whether she knows it or not. What are you saying? Zara whispered. I'm saying that as we speak. 2 of my most trusted men are escorting your grandmother from her apartment in Chicago to a private medical facility in Seoul. One that specializes in advanced cancer treatments not yet available in America. Zara gasped, hands flying to her mouth. You can't just... That's kidnapping. Minho's mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. They showed her pictures of you, explained the situation. She packed her own bag and asked if they could stop for fried chicken on the way to the airport. Apparently, she's always wanted to see Korea. Tears welled in Zara's eyes. Why would you do this for me? Not for you, Minho corrected. For myself. I'm an old man, Miss Williams. I've spent decades building an empire on blood and fear. Before I die, perhaps I can build something on loyalty and truth instead. He stood up, straightening his impeccable suit. Now, about that job offer. Your duties would include translation, business correspondence, and occasionally accompanying me to meetings where having an American associate might be advantageous. The salary is 10 times what you earned as a maid, plus full medical coverage for both you and your grandmother for life. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. Tomorrow morning, I'm holding a family meeting in the ancestral hall. I would like you to attend. Sir, Zara protested. Your son and Sumin will be there, Minho finished for her, along with my other children, their spouses, and my most trusted lieutenants. It is time to clean house, Miss Williams, and you will be my witness. The ancestral hall of the Song Mansion was a testament to Korea's complex relationship with its past. Traditional wooden panels lined the walls, adorned with calligraphy scrolls and ancestral tablets. But the space was also modernized, climate-controlled, with subtle recessed lighting that highlighted the ancient artifacts displayed in custom glass cases. Zara sat quietly to Minho's right, feeling the hostile stares of Junho and Sumin from across the low table. Minho's other children, 2 daughters and a younger son, watched with curious expressions, while various high-ranking members of the organization lined the walls, their faces impassive. Minho sat cross-legged at the head of the table, back straight despite his age, emanating authority without effort. He began by lighting incense before the ancestral tablets, bowing deeply 3 times in the traditional manner. Then he straightened and surveyed the room, his gaze finally settling on his eldest son. Junho, he said, his voice carrying easily in the hushed space. When I die, which of my businesses will you sell first? The question, seemingly from nowhere, caused Junho to blink in confusion. Father, I don't understand. It's a simple question, Minho continued. The shipping company? The construction firms? Or perhaps the nightclubs? Which piece of what I've built over 50 years will you dismantle first? Junho shifted uncomfortably. I would never dismantle what you've built, Father. Your legacy is sacred to me. Sacred? Minho repeated, the word hanging in the air like smoke. An interesting choice of words from a man who has been systematically betraying that legacy for the past year. The room went deathly still. Even the bodyguards seemed to hold their breath. Minho reached into his jacket and removed a thin folder, placing it precisely on the table before him. $15 million, transferred to accounts in Shanghai. Information on our shipping operations sold to the Park Syndicate. And plans, detailed plans, to take my grandchildren and flee to Singapore once I was dead. He opened the folder, removing photographs and documents, laying them out one by one like tiles in a grim game. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I had grown so old, so weak, that you could steal from me with impunity? Junho's face had gone ashen. Beside him, Sumin sat rigidly, her eyes fixed on the table. Father, Junho began, these are misunderstandings. Business arrangements that... Silence, Minho commanded. not raising his voice but filling it with such authority that Jun-ho physically recoiled. You disgrace yourself further with lies. He turned his attention to his daughter-in-law. And you, Sumin, not content with theft and betrayal, you attempted murder under my roof. A woman who served our family loyally, who did nothing but witness your crimes, you sentenced to death in the snow. Sumin's composure cracked. She's just a servant, a foreign nobody. How can you choose her over your own family? Minho's eyes flashed with rage. You dishonor everything our ancestors built. True power comes from compassion, not cruelty. You never understood that. You saw only money and status, never the responsibility that comes with our position. He stood slowly, and everyone in the room rose with him, everyone except Jun-ho and Sumin, who remained frozen in their seats. I have made my decision, Minho announced. Jun-ho and Sumin are hereby expelled from the Song family. Their names will be removed from our family registry. They will receive no inheritance, no protection, no recognition. Gasps echoed around the room. In Korean culture, such banishment was worse than death, a complete erasure of identity and belonging. Father, please, Jun-ho begged, finally finding his voice. Our children. Your children will remain here, Minho stated firmly. They are innocent of your crimes. They will be raised by their aunt, my second daughter, who has always shown the family honor you lack. He turned to the stunned group of business associates. As of today, my youngest son, Tae-woo, will assume the position of heir to our family enterprises. Anyone who objects may leave now, with their severance pay and without repercussions. No one moved. Minho nodded, satisfied. Then he did something that shocked the room even further. He placed his hand on Zara's shoulder. This woman, Zara Williams, will serve as my personal advisor and cultural liaison going forward. She will have full access to our legitimate business operations and will report directly to me. Any disrespect shown to her will be considered disrespect to me. Zara sat perfectly still, overwhelmed by the implications of his words. From servant to advisor in less than a week. It was unthinkable. Minho turned back to his disgraced son and daughter-in-law. You have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings. Nothing else. When you leave this house, you are dead to us. If you attempt contact with your children or any member of this family, if you speak a word about our business to anyone, your actual deaths will follow swiftly. He looked around the room once more. This meeting is concluded. May our ancestors forgive the shame brought upon our name and guide us toward redemption. As everyone filed out, Sumin caught Zara's eye across the table. The hatred there was pure, undiluted. A promise of vengeance that sent chills down Zara's spine despite everything. But something else had changed too. For the first time since arriving in the Song household, Zara walked with her head high, her back straight, meeting the curious glances of staff and family members without lowering her eyes. She had survived the snow. She would survive this too. From freezing in the snow to honored family member, Zara's journey shows that dignity knows no borders and true respect transcends culture. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments what sacrifice you would make for someone in need. Like and subscribe for more powerful tales of unexpected honor in our divided world. 1 year later, Seoul was transformed once again by winter, but this time Zara Williams stood warm inside the Song mansion, dressed in a stunning modern hanbok of midnight blue silk, watching snowflakes dance outside windows that would never again be locked against her. The Lunar New Year celebration was in full swing, but different from the year before. The guest list had been culled, fewer politicians, more artists and educators. The traditional ceremonies remained, but Minho had insisted on integrating elements that reflected Zara's heritage as well, soul food alongside Korean delicacies, jazz playing softly beneath traditional Gaegeum music. In the corner, her grandmother sat regally in a comfortable chair, holding court with Minho's grandchildren, teaching them English phrases that made them giggle. The advanced treatment had worked wonders, not a cure, but precious time gained. Her gray hair was styled in an elegant updo adorned with traditional Korean ornaments, a gift from Minho's youngest daughter. Quite a difference from last year. Minho's voice came from behind her. Zara turned, smiling. The past 12 months had changed him too. He still commanded respect, still ran his businesses with an iron hand, but there was a softness around his eyes now, a lightness in his movements that spoke of burdens set down. I was just thinking the same thing, Zara replied. Although I spent most of last year's party trying not to be noticed. And now you're impossible not to notice, Minho observed, nodding towards several young businessmen who kept glancing in her direction. My son Tae-woo tells me you've revolutionized our international operations. The European contracts alone have doubled our legitimate revenue. I just applied what I learned in school, Zara said modestly. Clean business is actually more profitable in the long run. Minho nodded thoughtfully. A lesson it took me too long to learn. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold around them. Minho's family, what remained of it, had accepted Zara with varying degrees of enthusiasm. The younger generations embraced her, fascinated by her stories of America. The older ones were more reserved, but respectful after witnessing Minho's unwavering support. Have you heard from them? Zara asked quietly, not needing to specify who. Minho's face hardened slightly. Junho is working for a shipping company in Busan, a minor position. Sumin returned to her family in Daegu. They divorced 6 months ago. Zara nodded, unsurprised. Without power and status to bind them, there had been little substance to their relationship. I have something for you, Minho said, changing the subject. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small silk pouch. A token of appreciation for your loyalty this past year. Zara accepted it curiously, loosening the drawstring. Inside was a jade pin, a dragon with ruby eyes, small enough to fit in her palm but clearly ancient and valuable. Her breath caught. Sir, this is the ancestral pin, Minho confirmed. The one Sumin claimed to have lost that night. I can't accept this, Zara protested. It belongs in your family. You are family now, Minho said simply. Not by blood, but by choice. Sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in the coldest circumstances. Tears pricked Zara's eyes as she carefully pinned the dragon to her hanbok. The weight of it against her chest felt right, somehow a reminder of how far she had come, how much she had survived. In America, she said softly, we have a saying, family isn't always blood. It means that true family is built on loyalty and love, not merely shared ancestry. Minho finished for her. We have a similar saying in Korea. He glanced toward her grandmother, who was now teaching his youngest granddaughter to braid hair. Some find family in blood, others find it in the storm. Zara smiled, understanding the deeper meaning behind his words. They had both been caught in storms, hers of poverty and desperation, his of betrayal and disillusionment. And somehow, against all odds, they had found shelter in each other. Outside, snow continued to fall on Seoul, covering the city in a clean white blanket that hid the grime and struggle beneath. But inside the Song mansion, warmth prevailed, not just physical warmth, but the deeper warmth of belonging, of purpose, of redemption. Zara Williams, once nearly frozen to death on this very property, raised her glass in a silent toast to second chances and unexpected families, to survival against impossible odds, and to the strange, winding path that had led her from the brink of death to a place at the right hand of the most powerful man in Seoul. A year ago, she had been expendable. Now she was irreplaceable. A year ago, she had been alone. Now she was family. The storm had nearly destroyed her. Instead, it had set her free.